The first time the lantern turned blue, no one screamed. That was the strangest part. In a village where even a fox's cry could send shutters slamming shut, where children were taught to bow to empty roads and elders still whispered prayers before dusk, the sudden blue flame should have caused panic. Instead, people froze, as if something deep and ancient inside them recognized the color and knew better than to react. They simply stood there, breath held, eyes fixed on the lantern swaying above the narrow street, glowing a cold, unnatural blue. And somewhere in the dark, something watched them watch it. I didn't grow up believing in stories like this. I'm Kenji Mori, a documentary sound editor from Tokyo. I spend my days cleaning up background noise, stripping emotion down to frequencies and waveforms. Ghosts don't show up on spectrograms. Fear, to me, was just another sound you could isolate and mute. At least that's what I thought until I followed a broken recording into the mountains of Gifu Prefecture. The file came from an old folklorist's archive, mislabeled and corrupted. Most of it was static, but buried beneath the hiss was a voice thin, trembling, unmistakably afraid. He kept repeating one sentence: "When the lantern turns blue, don't look for the watcher." No context, no explanation. Just that warning over and over until the recording cut off mid-breath. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. I told myself I was chasing history, not ghosts. 2 weeks later, I was on a rural bus heading toward a village so small it barely registered on modern maps. The locals called it Aonami Blue Wave. Aonami sat in a narrow valley, pressed between forested slopes that blocked out the sun hours before dusk. The air smelled of damp wood and old stone. Every sound seemed muffled, as if the village itself were holding its breath. There were lanterns everywhere. Not electric lights, paper lanterns, old-fashioned, hanging outside homes, shops, shrines. Most glowed a soft amber, casting warm halos onto the dirt roads, all except one. It hung at the edge of the village, near a disused footpath leading into the forest, unlit, still, waiting. I noticed people avoided that road entirely. They took longer routes, even if it meant walking an extra 20 minutes. When I asked why, they smiled politely and changed the subject. That night, I stayed at a small inn run by an elderly woman named Mrs. Takahashi. Her back was bent, her voice gentle, but her eyes were sharp, watchful. As she poured tea, I asked about the lanterns. "They are for protection," she said. "They remind us we are seen." "Seen by who?" I asked, half joking. She didn't laugh. "By those who walk when we should not," she replied. I decided not to push. Instead, I asked about Aonami's history, about old festivals, traditions. She answered easily until I mentioned blue lanterns. The teacup slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Finally, she whispered, "If you see it turn blue, do not stay outside." That was all she would say. The first night passed quietly, too quietly. No insects, no wind. Even the forest seemed muted, like a painting with the sound turned off. Around midnight, I woke to a faint creaking noise, a rhythmic sway. I stepped to the window and peered out. The lantern at the edge of the village was glowing. Not amber, blue. The light wasn't bright. It was deep, saturated, like ink illuminated from within. It didn't flicker like flame. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. I felt it before I understood it. The sensation of being watched, not from the forest, from everywhere. I scanned the road, no movement, no figures, yet my skin prickled, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. Across the street, a door cracked open. A man peered out, eyes wide. When he saw the blue lantern, he froze. Then very carefully he bowed, deep, respectful, terrified. He shut the door without another glance. That was when I heard it. A soft sound behind me, breathing. I spun around. Nothing. The room was empty. But the air felt occupied, like someone had just stepped away, leaving warmth behind. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, the lantern was amber once more. The village acted as if nothing had happened. When I asked Mrs. Takahashi about the blue light, she looked at me for a long time before speaking. "You saw it," she said, not a question. "Yes," she sighed. "Then you must leave before the third night." "Why the third?" I asked. "Because the Watcher learns you by then." She told me the story over breakfast, voice barely above a whisper. Long ago, before roads and buses, Aonami was a crossing point, a place where travelers stopped before entering the mountains. Lanterns were hung to guide the lost. One night, a lantern keeper noticed someone standing just beyond the light. A man-shaped shadow that never moved, never spoke. Night after night, the figure returned. The lantern keeper began to feel watched, followed even in daylight. His reflection lagged behind him. His shadow bent the wrong way. On the seventh night, the lantern burned blue. The keeper vanished before dawn. They found no body, only footprints leading into the village from every direction. Since then, the blue lantern appeared whenever the Watcher drew close. A warning and an invitation. "What happens if someone looks for it?" I asked. Mrs. Takahashi met my eyes. "It looks back." I should have left. Instead, I set up my recording equipment. I told myself this was rare documentation. Proof. Sound didn't lie. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, I positioned microphones near the forest path, infrared cameras, motion sensors. The villagers watched from their doorways as I worked. None tried to stop me. Their faces held something worse than fear, resignation. Night fell. At 11:47 p.m., the lantern turned blue. Every sensor spiked at once. The microphones picked up a low-frequency hum too deep to hear, but powerful enough to vibrate my chest. The cameras showed nothing unusual. Then, slowly, a new sound emerged. Footsteps, not approaching, circling, always just beyond the edge of the lantern's glow. I swallowed hard and stepped closer, heart pounding. "Hello?" I called, hating the tremor in my voice. The footsteps stopped. The blue light brightened, and then, directly behind my left ear, I heard my own voice whisper my name. I ran. I don't remember how I got back to the inn. I only remember slamming the door, collapsing against it, gasping for air. On my recorder, the waveform was a mess: static, distortion, overlapping voices. One clear phrase cut through the noise. You noticed. The second night was worse. I tried to leave that morning, but the bus never came. No signal. The road out of the valley was blocked by a fallen tree that hadn't been there before. That evening, the villagers lit extra lanterns. They avoided my eyes. Mrs. Takahashi pressed a small paper charm into my hand. It may help, she said. Or it may not. When the lantern turned blue again, it didn't stay at the edge of the village. It moved, slowly, deliberately. One lantern after another flickered blue like a spreading bruise. With each change, the sense of being watched grew heavier, closer. I saw shapes and reflections that didn't match the room. Shadows with too many joints. At midnight, there was a knock at my door. I didn't answer. The knock came again, softer, then a voice. My father's voice. He'd been dead for 10 years. Kenji, it said gently. I just want to talk. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the sound came from inside my skull. When I finally dared to look, the hallway was empty, but the paper charm in my hand had turned blue. The third night, I understood the truth too late. The watcher wasn't a creature. It was a presence drawn to attention, curiosity, observation. The more you watched it, the more it watched you. And once it learned you, it followed. The lantern turned blue before sunset, every single one. The village glowed like a drowned constellation. I felt it standing behind me, though I refused to turn around. I'm leaving, I whispered. I won't tell anyone. A sound like amusement rippled through the air. You already did, it replied. The last thing my recorder captured was the sound of lanterns swaying and footsteps that matched my own perfectly. I'm telling you this because I made it out, barely. A hiker found me unconscious miles from Anami, wandering a road that shouldn't exist. The village is gone now. No records, no coordinates, just forest. But sometimes when I walk home late at night, I see a lantern ahead of me. And for just a second, it glows blue. If this story unsettled you, good. It means you were paying attention. If you have thoughts, theories, or stories like this from your own culture, share them in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories whispered from the edge of folklore and fear, subscribe. Just remember, when the lantern turns blue, don't look for who's watching.